Sarah Higby, and today we're going to be making Christmas coasters with a sewing machine and these directions, plus the help of my grandma.
I'm Olivia Hopkins, and for our Christmas coasters we need to cut 6 5-inch pieces of fabric and 1 5-inch piece of backing.
We're going to be using a rotary cutter to cut our fabric squares. So what you have to do is you have to line up your square ruler to make the 5 inches, and you take your rotary cutter and you just want to cut it up the edge. And then once you've cut this piece of fabric, you can just toss it to the side because you don't need it anymore. And we want to make sure that you get like your fabric centered. So we want to make sure that we get most of our fabric. And then you're going to do the same thing just across the top.
So to start putting our coaster together, we're going to get a piece of fabric, and this is going to be on the inside of the coaster. It doesn't really matter what it looks like because you're not really going to see it. This is the right side, and this is the wrong side. The right side is what you want everyone to see, but this is the inside piece, so it doesn't really matter. So we're going to put the wrong sides together. This would be your backing. It's the same thing on either side, so it doesn't matter. Put that together, and then we're going to put wrong side down too. So this piece right here is going to be the back of your coaster. So that's what you're going to see. That's the solid part of your coaster.
So to get the front of your coaster, you're going to have 4 different fabrics on the front. And to get these 4 different squares, what you have to do is take each square of fabric and you want to fold them so that the wrong sides of your fabric are together. And you're going to lay them on top of this square with this crease towards the middle of your fabric. Then you're going to do the same thing with all 4 of your remaining pieces of fabric, making sure to layer them so that you see each one of them at the end.
This is what your coaster should look like before sewing.
So the most important thing to remember before we start sewing is to pin. And the thing we need to remember about pinning this coaster is to get the pin through all the fabrics. So before I do anything, this is how the pinning should look when we're finished. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up this corner, and I'm going to put the pin through all the fabrics, and I'm going to push it right back through. And we're going to do this for all 4 corners.
Let's talk about the machine. So this down here below your machine on the ground is how you're going to control the speed of your stitching throughout your project. Up here you have what's called the presser foot, which is this like lever thing right here, and you can control it from usually the back of your machine, and when you push this lever down, it puts your presser foot down to the bottom, which holds your fabric down while you're sewing. And to pull it up, you just pull the lever back up, and then you can remove your fabric. This is the needle, which is threaded just like a hand sewing needle through a little hole down here. And there's also thread that's coming up through the bottom so that you sew both sides of your fabric.
With great fun comes great danger. So when sewing with the machine, make sure to keep your fingers away from the needle. Not only putting your finger under the needle not only hurts the machine itself, but it might cost you your finger too.
So there are many methods to starting a stitch. The way we're going to show you today is to take just a scrap piece of fabric, any fabric will do, and you're going to lower your presser foot just right on top. And then you're going to have to hold on to your 2 threads towards the back so that when you start sewing, they don't get sucked into your machine. So then we're going to put your foot down on the bottom where that pedal is. You're going to put your foot on top, and you want to line your coaster up with the side right here. That's where you're going to be sewing. You're going to start by sewing through this white fabric. Once you get into it a little bit, you're going to line your coaster back up with this edge again. And you just want to keep sewing onto your fabric so that you don't have a stitch drop off. So you're going to start sewing, and you want to keep your hands at a safe distance so again you don't catch your fingers. When you get to this part, it might even be smart to lift your presser foot back up and tuck your fabric back down under so that you don't catch the corners. Put it back down and keep sewing. You can start and stop at any pace you want. It doesn't mess up your stitches. Then once you get down closer to your pin, you want to take your pin out so you don't sew over it. We're going to run our stitch right off the edge. Once you're finished, all you have to do is lift your pressure foot back up, and on this machine, you just pull your fabric out a little so that it's still attached by these strings, and up here there's a blade, and you just pull down and you cut your strings. So you want to keep sewing all 4 edges, just do it the same way that we showed you. And when you get to the end and your white fabric is still hanging off, just take a pair of scissors and clip it off.
So cutting the corners will make turning our coaster inside out just a little bit easier. So all you're going to do is just make sure that you don't cut your seams so your coaster doesn't fall apart. And what you can also do to make this a little easier and look a little better, you can cut your uneven edges like I'm going to do right now. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it inside out. You can really do this any way you want to, as long as you're careful and don't rip the seams. That's the last thing we want to do since we took so much time sewing it. And we have actually a special tool here that will help you get all the corners out. It looks like this. You can really use anything to get these corners out. A pencil, a stick, and really anything would do. You just don't want to push, again, you don't want to push too hard and rip your seams. You can also use your fingers. Your fingers work just fine too. And there's your final product.
If at any point during the project you mess up or you sew something together you shouldn't have, all you have to do is use a stitch ripper. So what we're going to do is you take this pointed part and you put it down underneath your seams, being careful not to poke holes in your fabric, and you just pull. You kind of hear a ripping sound when you do it, and that's okay. It's just your thread, and it's you're not going to reuse it, so it's okay. Once you've pulled these first few through on the top, you can flip it over and just pull the back ones through. They come out really easy. So let's talk about threading your machine. Your thread is just on a spool on the side of your machine. Sometimes they stand straight up right here too. And on this specific machine, what you're going to do is come around this little knob right here. You're going to kind of give a little pull to your thread as you go. And you're going to come over here to where this is, and because of this arrow, you can see that you're going to go around this knob. You're going to come down, and there's a little clip right here inside the machine. And once you clip your thread in, you're actually going to come back around, up through. You're going to come down through the front of the machine, and there's typically arrows all over the machine, just so you know. When you come down, you're going to come around this silver part right here and back up. Right here is where you're actually going to hook your thread. So there's a knob on the side of your machine that'll change this, where this is in the machine, and that just goes with your stitching. So if you bring it all the way to the top, you're going to keep pulling your thread through. And sometimes if it gets too tight, you can loosen it back up at the top. You're going to give it a little pull. You're going to come up. There's a hook inside of this too. Once you get it hooked in like this, you'll see, you can feel it on your machine. You'll continue to give it a little leeway and pull through. You're going to come just straight back down, and now you're going to thread your needle. What you're going to do is you're just going to take the very end of your thread and put it through the small hole in the needle. Sometimes it's pretty hard, and there's a lot of different ways and tips you can do. A couple of them are you can cut the edge of your thread off just to make it sharper and easier to put through. So then, you know, once you get a nice sharp edge, you can put it through. Also, there's a lot of people that even lick the edge just to get it to stay together. It's really just your preference. Alright, why don't we stop it? And once you get it through your needle, if you just push a little bit and then pull with your finger, you pull it all the way through, you lift your presser foot back up from behind your machine, put it down through the loop, pull it out to the back, and you're ready to go.
Welcome to Grandma Higby's sewing room. So, basically it's actually a really cool sewing room. You can see some of the quilts on the wall. I'll walk through two. I'm going to walk through this one. So, all of these pieces were hand cut, and if you get a little closer, you can see some of the stitching here, and that's called quilting, and that's done generally more by hand than by machine. Most of these quilts have actually won prestigious awards in some shows. And this is one of her newer ones, and again, all of these pieces were cut by hand. Even I think these little candy corns, they were sewed layer by layer together. They weren't like that. And that's Grandma Higby's sewing room.
So this is another machine that you can use. This right now is set up to be an embroidery machine. And embroidery is typically anytime you see a blanket, a bag, anything with a name, letters, words on it. This is the machine they use to put those letters and words. And right now it's got green thread in it. You can really set it up with any color you want. And this has also got this screen on it because you can hook it up to a laptop and do different programming and a lot of different things with this machine.
So going back to the quilt wall, we see very many drawers of fabrics, and it's organized by color mostly. And I mean, she's got any color you could probably think of. And over here, I'm going to go through this drawer just a little. These are some of the more fun designs and fabric colors. You can see some of the flowers, stripes, all different colors and designs and animals and stuff like that that's on them. And then in this particular drawer, we can see the very many sizes and colors of thread that Grandma Higby has. You can really choose any color and any size that you feel you want to do that day.
So that concludes our session on really teaching you how to sew with a machine. So hopefully you know just a little bit more about sewing with a machine than you did just a few minutes ago.